The law of self-defense content you are about to enjoy is presented for general educational purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice. If you are in need of legal advice, consult competent legal counsel in the relevant jurisdiction. Hey folks, welcome back to our ongoing coverage of the Ahmaud Arbery case, in which defendants Greg McMichael, Travis McMichael, and William Bryan are being tried for murder and other charges in the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery. I am, of course, attorney Andrew Branca for Law of Self-Defense, and today the court proceeded, again, with jury selection, or voir dire, in this case, with the goal of impaneling 12 jurors and 4 alternates. Today was the 5th group of prospective jurors put through the selection process, with each group nominally numbering 20 people. Today's voir dire process mirrored that of previous sessions, with general group voir dire being conducted in the jury assembly room and subsequent individual voir dire conducted in the courtroom afterward. As usual, with no audio, we'll share our notes and video of the general voir dire proceedings with you here. But one exceptional part of today's proceedings, and the cause of an hour-plus long delay in the start of voir dire, was legal argument in the courtroom on 2 main issues. First, the defense attorneys are increasingly upset with what they perceive as efforts to bias the jury and to indoctrinate prospective jurors in how to say the magic words, those being, "Yes, I can set my biases aside and be fair and impartial, Your Honor," even if they are as far from being fair and impartial as could be imagined. In particular, the defense wanted the crowds outside the courthouse to be moved further back. Ultimately, Judge Walmsley said he would take the matter under advisement, but I would not expect any real changes here. I have video of that exchange embedded in the text version of today's content. It's rather lengthy. Second, the defense attorneys had proposed a half dozen or so additional questions they wanted to include in voir dire moving forward. These necessarily have to be offered by the defense, argued against by the prosecutors, and then the judge makes the final call. Judge Walmsley allowed a couple of new questions, but largely rejected the questions proposed as either being redundant to what was already being asked, or on the grounds that the new questions were effectively asking the prospective jurors to prejudge the case, which is impermissible. 2 questions that were allowed were an expansion of the question asking about support of Black Lives Matter to also include now support of various I Run with Ahmaud type efforts, and an entirely new question asking if any prospective jurors had an opinion about the time lapse between the shooting death of Arbery on February 23rd, 2020, and the delayed arrest of the defendants in May 2020. And we have video of this exchange as well. Again, it's rather lengthy. That's embedded in the text version of today's content. So some key findings from today's general voir dire. Of particular note from today's general voir dire, fully 65% of today's prospective jurors had already formed or expressed an opinion as to the guilt or innocence of the accused. I'll note that's triple yesterday's proportion and still well above what we were seeing last week. Fully 80% have had a close friend, relative, or themselves been arrested for a crime. More than a third, 35%, had been victims of burglary or home invasion. Fully 75% conceded to having developed negative feelings due to media coverage of the case towards the defendants. Just over half, 55%, believe that the criminal justice system and police generally did not treat people of color fairly or equally. On the expanded question of support for Black Lives Matter that now also asks about support for I Run with Ahmaud type groups, just under half, 45%, indicated that they had supported such groups and efforts to some degree. And on the new question, asking if they had an opinion about the delay in arresting the defendants, fully 80% indicated that they had formed an opinion on this matter. Now, once again, today's general voir dire was a 4-stage process with welcoming remarks and a few questions by Judge Walmsley, then extensive questioning, this time by Senior Assistant District Attorney Paul Camarillo, his first time at the podium, although Senior ADA Linda Dunikowski did take over again to run through that lengthy witness list they've been using. Then there was the defense turn, more succinct questioning by defense counsel Jason Sheffield, including the expanded and new questions. And finally, closing remarks and cautions by Judge Walmsley. So the questions asked by Judge Walmsley, there's only a few of those, so I'll speak to those explicitly. Are any members of the panel related by blood or marriage to any defendant or Ahmaud Arbery? Of course, nobody was. But surprisingly, have you formed or expressed an opinion as to the guilt or innocence of the accused? 65% said yes. Any prejudice for or against the accused? No one raised their hand and asked in the reverse manner whether their mind was not perfectly impartial between the state and the accused. This time, 5 of the 20 raised their hands. So at this point, the judge handed over general voir dire to the state in the form of Senior Assistant District Attorney Paul Camarillo, his first time at the podium. He asked the 80-some questions that the prosecution has lined up, the substantive questions, and then Senior ADA Linda Dunikowski, who we've seen every day prior doing voir dire for the state, ran through the lengthy witness list to see if any jurors knew those people. I won't step through these questions and answers other than having already addressed a few in the key findings of the day. But of course, we do embed the questions and the numbers of the jurors who respond affirmatively to those in the text version of today's content. Much the same with the defense questioning. I won't go into the details of those 20-some odd questions other than how I've already highlighted some of the findings in the key findings from today's voir dire. But we do have, of course, the text of the questions and the numbers of the jurors responding in the affirmative in the text version of today's content. Of course, after the defense, the judge had his usual closing remarks and cautions to the jury. Don't talk about the case. Don't look anything up. If someone tries to talk to you, let the court know, and so forth. And then the court recessed for individual voir dire back in the courtroom, which of course we don't have substantive access to because they don't play audio during that part of the proceedings. Okay, folks, that's all I have for all of you today, except just a reminder, we do have video of each of those 4 major segments of voir dire embedded in the text version of today's content for your viewing pleasure. So I encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity if that's of interest. Remember, if you carry a gun, so you're hard to kill. That's why I carry a gun, so I'm hard to kill. So my family is hard to kill. Then you also owe it to yourself and your family to make sure you know the law, so you're hard to convict. Until next time, I remain Attorney Andrew Branca for Law Self-Defense. Stay safe.